How's it going, guys? It's In the Money. Guess what? Meet Kevin blocked me on Twitter, which you can follow me in the link down below. Why did he do this? Well, he tweeted, "Entitlement is the greatest social cancer," with all caps, like he's a novel writer or a dystopian novel writer. And I said, "How's the jet thing going?" And could be taken innocently. I didn't mean it innocently. I was actually just poking him a little bit. I was saying, "How's the jet thing going?" Because one, someone who has a $10 million loan on a jet is a little ironic when they're saying entitlement is the greatest social cancer. And two, I was asking because he hasn't talked about the jet at all. It was jet this, ride my PP, private plane that. It was jet, we'll do podcasts on the jet. We'll do flights on the jet. Come ride with me on the jet. You can come sit on my hand on the jet. And then all of a sudden it went dead silent. And why is that? Well, we won't know because he doesn't like being open, because he doesn't like looking bad. So whatever the reason is likely because he doesn't like looking bad. And it might not even be that big of a deal, but to him, he's just so protective of his image. And I think that comes with his natural ability to be a salesman, is he's so protective of his image. When in reality, it could be as simple as he canceled his $2,900 flights because he couldn't take it anymore, and he doesn't want to talk about it. If I had to spend 10 minutes with one of you guys, I would lose my mind. So I don't know how he would spend hours flying around with people for only $2,900. He's just trying to figure out how to make $6,000 out of thin air to compensate for the interest he has to pay yearly on that jet. And you have to think about, like, let's pull up the median. His idea behind a house hack, as far as I understand it, I'm going to be all over the place here. As far as I understand it, is that he thinks that interest rates are rising. Therefore, home prices have to come down for people to be interested in buying them. Otherwise, the interest rates are going to make the mortgages too expensive and people won't buy them. When in reality, demand actually hasn't died off as much as you would expect, while supply has remained unchanged. So you've had pretty relatively constant demand, maybe faltering a little bit, but supply has remained unchanged. And so as a result, the price of, supply and demand dictating price, the price hasn't fallen as drastically as he probably has hoped. And I've already drawn a little bit on here, but let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's the median house price sale in the United States. It's at $442,000. At its peak back in October of 2022, sorry, let me get rid of that. It was sitting at $490,000. So peak to trough, we're looking at minus 10%. So that's more of a correction than a crash. And in his mind, what is he thinking? Is he thinking that it's going to be dropping down here so he can start buying a bunch of homes down here? I'm not sure. And I'm not sure if it'll just recover and go back up, because we're already entering a place where interest rates are likely going to be hitting our max federal funds rate in not too long. And in that case, mortgages, the interest rate on mortgages are pretty much going to be maxed out. So all else held equal, we're basically troughed out, in my mind. So there's that. So the homes aren't as cheap as he is expecting. And so with house hack, if he's going to go fly around and buy a bunch of houses, they may not be at prices that he's hoping they would be. And he might still be waiting, and he might miss the train, number one. Number two, if you go around flying on your jet, buying a bunch of different houses, you're going to have friction. There's going to be costs associated with buying the houses. And there's also going to be a need for people to manage those houses. He can't do it alone. So he's going to start having to make an actual business of himself. And that's going to have a lot of overhead expenses, administrative expenses, et cetera. That is going to add to the amount of money he has to make per year outside of YouTube, just focusing on his business, in order to compensate for the $600,000 loss that he's making per year. So he might be losing money on not be making much capital appreciation on properties as he was hoping, and he might end up spending more on administrative fees and overhead costs and fixed costs than he was anticipating as well, which might turn a house hack into a real hack. It's kind of a funny name, isn't it? To call something a house hack, if I call myself In the Money hack, and be like, well, I don't want to watch that guy, House hack, that doesn't sound like the best business ever. Sounds kind of like a hack, So interesting choice there. So it's a little. I don't feel bad for the people who gave him money, because I just don't, because they gave him millions and millions of dollars. So these are the big guys with lots of money. Not a bunch of little guys, in my opinion. I think it's got to be some big cats in there with some deep wallets. Bought the idea that higher interest rates means for sure that home prices are going to crash. But when demand still remains relatively high, surprise, surprise, sometimes things are hard to predict. And the housing market is just as difficult to predict as the stock market, because you don't know. Yeah. What have I covered so far? I can't remember, so I'm going to keep going. I'll cut out what I haven't covered. I want to talk about. So he's done talking about the plane. Is it because it's illegal that he's having people pay him to ride on his plane? Well, let's take a look at the CFRs, which is the Code of Federal Regulations that apply to private pilots, and let's look at part C here. Whatever you call it. It says a private pilot may not pay less than pro rata share of the operating expenses of a flight with passengers, provided the expenses involve only fuel, oil, airport expenditures, or rental fees. So all that's saying, the rest has to do with like a lot of different things, like if you're using glider, or if you're doing search and rescue, or have to do medical certificates. So this is like the most important thing for private pilots, and is asked on your private pilot exam. So this shows that it's the pilot's responsibility. If the pilot is taking money for rides, then that's illegal. Meet Kevin taking money for rides. That's not illegal at all, because he's not a private pilot. He does not have to abide by the CFRs or anything that has to do with the FAA, really, besides dropping things out of the window. Even still, you can do that. They actually allow you to do that, as long as you're not there's no risk of harming anybody down below. You can totally drop stuff out of the window. Surely you've seen the person on the crop duster drop a Subway and nuke Grandpa from his crop duster about 800 feet, 1,000 feet up. So he's not doing anything illegal. So why is he not talking about it? Well, it's just right up his character. It's just right up his character. There's a reason, and we just don't know. He won't disclose it. How classic. Listen, when I poke at people like me, Kevin, it's to try to build up their character, right? There's Jordan Peterson talks about, you might not like him, whatever. Jordan Peterson talks about how in Canada he was on a rail crew, and there's this new guy, and he got this nickname called Lunch Bucket because he brought a lunch bucket that looked like his mom packed it. And the crew would throw little pebbles at his hard hat because he had to wear hard hats. And it was just a way of testing to see what his reaction would be. The best thing you could do is laugh it off or throw a pebble back or whatever. But instead, he became more of a recluse and very peevish. And when people asked him to do stuff, he would complain, et cetera, et cetera. So he kind of shrinked and shriveled away from people poking at him, instead of letting it build up his character and build camaraderie within the group. And so when I poke at people, that's my ultimate goal, is to highlight facets of somebody's character that I find relatively detestable. Am I God? No. But I feel like I'm a good judge of character, and usually I'm right. Like with Andre Jick, I feel like he's finally shifting. He said a lot of things in the past that I consider relatively dumb, such as when he said, if you want to be a millionaire, if that's something you're interested in, I think Bitcoin's one of the ways to do it. I remember he said that, and I tweeted, I was like, there's a lot of people watching you. Don't you think that's a little negligent? And I followed it up saying a lot of people are going to be losing their magic sets this year because they're going to have to sell them. But he's changed. He's learned a lot through that experience. I think he grew so fast, so quickly, that he didn't know what was the right thing to say or not. And but now, like in his last video, he's talking about how at the end everybody's just trying to make their way through life and not be caught not knowing something, especially in their area of expertise. If you get caught not knowing something, it's an unpleasant sensation. So we're all out here trying to be, no one's an expert. We're all kind of pretending to be experts and hoping no one catches us in an area where we're lacking in knowledge. And I thought that was a really salient point. And I think that becomes less true as you get older, especially if you're proactive about learning. But it's still especially true for the generation that is watching this type of content for the most part. And so I feel this shift in Andre Jick where he's acting more himself in his videos and he's making salient points and his jokes are starting to be funny. And it kind of makes me hopeful because, I've been poking at him for quite a while on my channel. And I don't poke people to be mean. I poke people to see what they're made of. That's what I do. And if someone pokes me, it would be my delight. There's nothing better than when someone tries to like pin me down or catch me in something I said or whatever. I love that stuff. I love debating and arguing. That is right up my alley. Yeah, but no one else has done that. I don't know if they just have chosen not to because it makes them uncomfortable, or if I'm literally that flawless that they can't think of one thing to poke at. Maybe I'll have something worthwhile down the road where I make a big mistake and someone can rip me to shreds, and it'll be fun. I'll enjoy every second of it. Follow me on Twitter down below, and you can see what I'm talking about. So this is In the Money. I love you very much. Have a special and unique day. I'm saying everything wrong. That's it. Here comes the outro music. 3, 2, 1.